Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paulius and Paulius, and after the ending of Loki episode 4, I think we have a lot to talk about. In this video, heads will roll as we go through what's happening with the Timekeepers, who's behind them, and what's with all the Loki variants in the post-credits scene. Full spoilers ahead, so if you don't want anything ruined, then I recommend you say bye bye Frost and exit the video as fast as possible. Smash the thumbs up button if you enjoy the breakdown, and make sure you subscribe as we're in the end game of the series now, and you definitely don't want to miss our breakdowns. With that out of the way, thank you for clicking the video. Now let's get into our Loki episode 5 theories. Okay, so episode 4 ends with Loki and Sylvie coming face to face with the Squidward trio, aka the Timekeepers. After throwing her sword, she beheaded the main one, and this exposed that they were actually androids. Life model decoys, or rather LMDs, are something that have popped up in the Marvel universe at several points, and typically they're used for a reveal just like this. They often indicate that someone has either duplicated themselves in order to appear a certain way, or that someone else is behind it all. Think Agatha all along and you get the picture. Now, when they're broken apart, the robots look quite a lot like Doombots, and though he could be behind it, I actually think that it's unlikely he would be in the TVA. Instead, I think there are some far more likely candidates that are pulling the strings. Now, the first potential is He Who Remains. In order to discuss him, we have to talk about how the universe works, and like all things, it too comes to an end. Now, when the universe dies, it creates something known as a heat death that starts off the next universal cycle, and in the comics we discover that He Who Remains was a TVA member from the previous one. He created the Timekeepers and gave them information so that on the next go they wouldn't make the same mistakes, and if we are keeping in with the comics, then he could be behind it all. Now, I think it's pretty unlikely that it's him, as he's always been more of a force for good, and the TVA themselves are quite sinister. Thus, it could actually be Kang the Conqueror, who has also been involved with the organization. Right after the release of Endgame, many people thought that Kang would be next, as when characters tend to mess with time, it tends to mess back, and he follows not long after. Jonathan Majors has been cast as the villain, and we do know that he's set to show up in Ant-Man Quantumania. However, it would be pretty cool to see him pop up at the end of the show in a sort of Thanos at the end of the Avengers moment, so we could get a tease for what's coming down the line. Kang comes from Chronopolis, which was possibly spotted in a bubble in the quantum realm during Ant-Man and the Wasp. Potentially, this is where the TVA is located, and though it is typically placed in the null time zone, I think it would be a very cool reveal that brings everything together. Now, if Kang is behind it all, then it is possible that he travelled through every timeline and that he found the one in which he could rule for eternity. We saw something similar in Infinity War when we learned there were over 14 million different scenarios for the Thanos battle, but only one in which the Avengers won. Potentially, Kang could be in the one where he is the ruler of all time, and in order to stop anyone from taking his throne, he's been pruning branches throughout the multiverse. Kang may have taken those who created Nexus events and wiped their memories before putting them into his ranks so that he could continue his quest to exterminate everything in the multiverse. All that would be left was a dimension in which he was unchallenged, and potentially the Nexus event that Sylvie would have created may have been her overthrowing him. Obviously, that's a completely wild theory, but let me know below if you disagree. Now, there is another person that I think could be behind it all, and they've already been in the show. What if, just sit down for a second, what if this entire thing is actually Miss Minutes? Now, we know that there's an elevator button that leads directly to her, and it is possible that she's the big bad. The Timekeepers are robots, clocks are of course mechanical, and the city that the TVA is based at also looks like the inner workings of a clock. She's popped up in the series, so it wouldn't come completely out of the blue, and when she was talking to Loki, it seemed like she was a recording, but also live at the same time. So lots of weird things going on with the character, and with Tara Strong voicing her, I think it would be a cool little twist to have it revealed that she's the one behind it all. Now, it could also be a version of Loki doing it, and potentially the show may be pulling from the graphic novel Agent of Asgard, in that it was revealed there was an older version of the character pulling the strings, and we did theorise that Richard E. Grant would be playing this. Though we got the casting right, and he is going to be an old version of Loki, judging from the post-credits scene, it seems like we were way off in terms of his role. However, it is worth going over him, and in the graphic novel, we learn that it was old Loki all along. He was the one manipulating the younger version to excel to greatness, and considering Loki has been nothing but a stepping stone in the MCU, I think that it would be a great reveal. Now at the end of the episode we meet several versions of Loki, and it does seem like next episode the main variant will be recruiting more of these in order to go and take down the TVA. This would explain why boat Loki pops up in the show, and also why in the trailers there's a brief glimpse at King Loki. However, beyond that, there may be one hiding under our noses, and it is possible that Ravonna Renslayer herself is a Loki. The series has confirmed that race and gender don't matter when it comes to who is a Loki, and you might be a Loki, you might be a Loki, you might be a Loki. So bad. Now, because of this, yeah, Renslayer could even be one herself, and this would explain why she felt some sympathy towards Sylvie when she was a child. Similar to how Mobius is in a loop constantly working with Loki, Renslayer may too be stuck in one, constantly hunting them. Hell, the TVA aren't above bringing Lokis in to hunt other Lokis, and this entire show started off on the idea that Tom Hiddleston's version would be tracking down Sylvie. Thus, it does make sense that she herself could be one, and because the TVA are able to wipe memories, this would be completely unbeknownst to her. Now there's no precedent for this in the comics, but I have no idea why she was so sympathetic towards Sylvie and why she allowed her to escape. In the elevator, she also smirked when Sylvie asked what Nexus event she created, and though she pretended not to know, she clearly did. And I also know it was you who farted in the elevator, yeah? Get that smile off your face. Now maybe this entire show is her simply attempting to be the superior Loki, and the Nexus event that Sylvie created was just her existing. I do feel that we're gonna get a twist that someone who we think is one character is actually a Loki themselves, and if this had to be anyone, my money would be on Renslayer. However, she also may simply be the same as her comic book counterpart and working for Kang. In the comics, the two had a relationship, and it would make a lot of sense if she is indeed tied in with him. Now lastly, I want to talk about what's happened to Mobius. In the episode, he was apparently killed, but Loki showed at the end that the sticks of death could be survived as he arrived in a decimated New York. Potentially, the same thing happened with Mobius, and he may even have been taken to somewhere else in the timeline. Trailers for the show have had him driving along in a jeep in what looks like Egypt, and thus we do know that he's probably coming back at some point, unless this is all a trick, which, you won't fool me, Mephisto, I know it's you. Now on top of this, I think that there may be other versions of Mobius that are running around. In Renslayer's office, he noticed there were several ring stains which she said had been left by him, and even though he brushed it off, he clearly thought it wasn't me. Now he also, so really bad this video, now he also looked at a pen which he said had been given to her by another agent. In episode 4, he looked longingly over this, and it is possible that it comes from his real life. In the comics, there were several versions of Mobius, and shoutouts to ZGen Media on Twitter for pointing out that the figure we see dotted about on posters does look a lot like the comic book version of him. So potentially, the one we see in Egypt is another version of the character. I definitely think that Mobius is stuck in his own loop though, and I hope at some point that he breaks it and gets to ride that jet ski. Just give this man a jet ski. Give this man a jet ski! Now the pruning itself may not actually be wiping people out, and judging off what's going on in the post-credit scene, I think the most likely scenario is that the characters are being teleported to a garbage timeline, also known as 2020. The post-credit scene very much feels like it's a dumping ground, and it's almost a sort of scrapyard timeline in which variants that are no longer needed are sent to. This would mean that Mobius might be there too, and I'd love it if they just had one big happy reunion and he got to ride off on his jet ski. Now obviously I'd love to hear your thoughts and theories, so make sure you comment below and let me know. As a thank you for interacting with the video, you'll be entered into a prize draw on the 30th of July, in which we pick 3 random comments so you can win an MCU box set of your choice. All you have to do to be on the chance of winning is like the video, make sure you subscribe with notifications on, and drop a comment below with your theories for the episode. The winners of last month's competition are on screen right now, so if that's you, then message me on Twitter at HeavySpoilers. If you want something else to watch, then make sure you check out our breakdown of episode 4, which will be linked on screen right now. We've gone over the entire thing from top to bottom, and pointed out all the cool Easter eggs we could find, so it's definitely worth checking out if you want to know more. With that out of the way, thank you for sitting through the video, I've been Paul, and I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.